Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Andre Ash. We've seen it all too often in recent weeks and months. Gun violence plaguing our schools and city streets, both here at home and across the nation. So, how do we reduce gun violence? And what is the cause? And what is the solution? The debate over gun rights versus gun reform. This morning on Michigan Chronicle News Now. Here to join us to talk more about it is Attorney Terry Johnson, as well as City Council member Mary Waters. Thank you both for being here on the program on News Now.
Thank you for having me.
So,
It's a pleasure.
let's talk about, we've seen the headlines and how shootings are impacting everyone, right? We've had the recent downtown shootings that have impacted Greektown. We've seen the mass shootings in our schools, and everyone's talking about what is the solution. Some of that conversation is about gun reform and limiting the access to guns. The state has even had major gun legislation that has been instituted here in recent weeks and in days. But what is the solution to lowering gun violence? Councilmember Waters, you recently proposed legislation here in Detroit that would put a ban on guns in Greektown. Where does that stand?
Well, first of all, I don't want to look at it as though it's a ban. I just want to call it, gun-free zones. We're not trying to take anybody's guns. I know people are very protective of their guns, but we're saying that whether you're mass crowds, Greektown, Hart Plaza, Campus Martius, and some of the other Riverfront and so forth, we are asking that you do not bring your guns. And this will allow us to better protect families and children and so forth. I live in this area, and so I find myself walking a lot myself, so I want to feel safe as well.
And gun-free zones, what does that look like if that was to be instituted in a Greektown area? What would that look like?
And this whole area, it means when you when you come to this area, you're coming without a gun, especially when you know that they're like real major events. You know how crowded it gets down here sometimes. It gets extremely crowded, especially during the summer months. And so I'm just saying, in order to better protect families, people, even the most reasonable person can be hot-tempered. I'm talking about legitimate people who have their CPLs and so forth. But if they have their gun, when they get upset about something, they are likely to use it.
No,
Attorney Johnson.
Wait a minute. If somebody approach you, Attorney Johnson, approach you, and you know that you have your gun, you might be a real reasonable person with your CPL. But there are a lot of people running around here with CPLs that have bad tempers.
Attorney Johnson, is it conflict resolution? Is it their temper or is it the gun?
Well, first of all,
your reaction.
First of all, let me go back on a couple of things. Councilwoman Waters starts out by, I don't want to take your guns. I just don't want you to bring them here. Here's the problem. The law-abiding citizens may follow that. First of all, let me take a half a step back. Number one, it's illegal because, as you know, you need to check with your city attorney, and I'll cite the site for you. Matter of fact, I have it.
You don't have to cite anything to me. I'm a former state legislator.
Right, and so you're aware with MCL 123-1102 that says, well, hang on. This says you, as a city, cannot legislate gun-free zones. That's number one.
Okay.
But number two, and more importantly, why would you want me not to be able to protect myself because someone else decides not to follow the law? Because that's what we have here. We have, one moment. We have right now, you've given me the opportunity to protect myself, and you said, well, people get hot-headed. What about police officers? Do they get hot-headed?
What, you got to use a gun against a police officer, if you had it?
Well, maybe they use them against us because do they get hot-headed? Should we take them away from them?
Well, it's their job.
So, Ms. Waters, when you have people who exercise the position, such as Mr. Johnson, what about the law-abiding citizen with their guns?
I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about law-abiding citizens. I'm talking about those that do not abide by the law, because I know that
So you want the criminals to follow a law?
Wait. Well, here's the thing. If the criminals show up in a gun-free zone with a gun, we're going to take the gun.
So you want
So all of those things have to be worked out with both the police department, with our law department.
I'm saying
and so
how
forth.
with,
Now, but
This
what-
is a state statute that says you can't do that.
but
Didn't I just tell you?
but to this point, to
Wait-
both, to
wait a minute.
both of you, we do have areas where there are, so like
Yeah.
for Hart Plaza, for example, there have been events recently where the police, like I
It's
believe the
illegal.
fireworks,
It's illegal.
where
and
they have set up.
They are
Right.
illegally
They
doing
set up
that.
scanners.
Let me remind Attorney Johnson that
Yes, ma'am.
laws can be changed.
But
That-
correct. But
that
you
law-
can't change a state
wait a
law at the city level.
what?
You
before-
know that.
Wait a minute.
Just 1 second.
First of all,
Just one.
Andre, let me just tell you something. I know that. That's why I've already started conversations with state legislators
Yeah.
about an authorization law that would allow cities to do that if they choose to do so. If they give us the authorization,
Yeah.
cities can have if they want to do that,
Mhm.
create gun-free zones, they should be allowed to do so. So I'm
And
just
where do
asking
most
that
mass
they
shootings happen?
that they
In
grant
gun-free
permission.
zones. So you want to create another area, another gun-free zone where
What
a
you mean
criminal,
another area?
another area, Greektown, wherever,
Yeah, mhm.
that guns aren't allowed, and where do a majority, 90+% of all mass shootings happen at, where guns are not allowed. So you want to create another one, just like
What?
Michigan State, where guns aren't allowed, just
Yeah.
like the place in Tennessee where guns aren't allowed.
So let's
What-
talk
So
about
the solution is let's create another place where a
But
mass shooting can happen.
with Michigan State, you had a lot of these students that were in their dorms. Some of them were over at that center at the what's the name of the center? We know where the students.
Student center.
Yeah,
Student
the
union.
student center, student unions,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So a number of them were there, but we know that what
But they
time of
couldn't
the
protect
but
themselves.
we know what time of the year we're going to have massive crowds here in this city. We're going to have them, especially during the summer. We're going to have a
So I
bunch
can't
of
protect
people.
myself
when
in the
weather-
summer. I got to wait for
what-
DP. What's DPD's average response time?
Oh, maybe it depends.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have to wait. I have to wait right now. I got to run in the corner and cry and pray nothing happens because you have now taken away
Let's
my
talk
ability
about-
to protect
Well,
myself.
well, here's the thing.
Mhm.
If you don't want to leave your gun at home, don't come. I mean, if you don't want to be in a massive crowd and
Why don't we pass a law where you can't kill anybody? Oh, we already have that.
Oh, we already.
Wow. Why don't we use
No,
the laws
Attorney
we have?
Johnson, what I
Oh,
am
goodness.
saying to you is that if you know that it's going to be, let's use the fireworks, for example.
Yeah.
We might want to say to people, do not bring your guns. Leave your guns at home.
Why don't we tell
So-
the criminals to
So,
stay at
actually,
home?
we're talking about them
leaving-
too.
No, we're
leaving your
not.
leaving your
Yes,
guns
we are.
for the
We're not.
fireworks has actually already happened. I think it was last year the police department and the city issued or
Yeah, but we
instituted
didn't have a point for checking all that stuff too much.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
you
there
had,
was
you
the
know,
the scanners, the
Yeah.
what do you call the scanners when you go to the
Mhm,
airport?
mhm.
You know, the city has implemented that. But where is the gun-free zone legislation that you brought up? Where is that in the process right now?
well, right now it's sitting in committee in terms of the ordinance. And I know before he says that, well, you know, you can't do the ordinance, but I can do it. Doesn't mean that that the law department will approve. But I
You were
want
on
to
the
do it.
committee.
I want to do it in conjunction
Yeah.
with some things happening at state law as well.
Well, let's get
But,
to
but,
let's-
a,
let's
but,
get
a
to the
law,
state-
but a law isn't going to stop what's in the person's heart. You created, and I applaud you for this, part of the law for felony firearm, right? In other words, somebody commits a felony with a firearm, they get a mandatory 2 years in prison. But guess what? People doing it every day.
And they're taking the 2 years and then some. And this
In
is
most
true.
cases, but in
Yeah.
most cases, it's
Mhm.
getting knocked down. But here's the problem. You cannot legislate what's in the heart of a man.
That is true.
But
But-
why? But
but-
what you're
but
taking
what-
away is my ability to
Okay,
protect
all right.
myself
So, all
against
right,
that
but
person.
what about the families and the children? What are we going to do about that?
Let
how
me
do we make
protect
them
my
feel
let's
safe?
family
talk
and
about-
my
I can
children.
assure- I can
let's talk
assure
about that. I want to give
you-
you both a chance to respond to this because we're talking about gun-free zone for downtown, but let's also talk about some of the moves that the state has made. You know, we're always talking about on the national federal level, what is, you know, Washington going to do? But let's talk about here in the state. Under Democratic leadership, there are state legislators who have changed law, red flag laws, and other initiatives. How do you respond to that? Is it a good move?
I think anything that we can do as it relates to guns it's a good thing. It's a step in the right direction.
Let's take them all
You know,
away, right?
I-
That's what you're saying. Why don't you turn to your constituents right now and say, let's take them all away?
I do support the Second Amendment. I kid you not. I do.
That's
but-
okay.
But here's what I'm saying. Attorney Johnson, you have the massive fireworks, I'm just use this one example.
Yeah.
And the city says, okay, we have permission, the state granted us permission. We're saying that for the fireworks, anybody who wants to attend cannot bring your guns. Okay. If you insist on bringing your guns, just don't come down to the fireworks.
Right. Here's the
that
other thing.
particular day.
And here's
Is
the
what I'm
thing.
saying.
So you are betting on criminals who don't follow the
They
law.
gotta be checked.
But here's
And
the
if
thing.
they get caught,
Where people,
that
but
illegal gun-
Mary, hang on now, hang on.
What?
Let's think about it.
I mean,
If a gun gets down there, what you gonna say? We got a pistol-free zone. This man brought a gun in. He broke the law. And where do mass shootings happen? In pistol-free zones. We call them killing zones because if my family
okay, how
comes
many
down,
pistol-free zones do you? Well, okay, you're talking about the schools and so forth.
yeah,
All right.
right. Schools,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Places where you cannot carry guns are where you're seeing mass shootings. What you are creating is another area for a mass shooting because it's not me that's going to be the problem. It's the person who doesn't follow the law.
Oh,
But we'll put a scanner up.
oh, okay.
Ooh,
You said people that don't fight. Oh, so
they're
you
called
talk,
criminals.
Are you talking about people who have a CPL or who do not? Because I submit to you that a lot of those mass shootings were sent. What? People who own illegal guns.
So okay,
No,
did.
let's get our
These
fact.
are
Wait, let's get our
people-
facts straight. Let's get our facts
So-
straight. The guy at Michigan State
uh-huh.
purchased a firearm legally,
Yes.
right?
I said legal.
But here's the problem. So what you're saying is, let's stop buying all guns. You just said a few minutes ago you want to do everything you can to take
Yeah,
away
but you're
guns.
talking
So
about
Attorney Johnson,
what you're
let me
saying.
interject just for 1 second. So Attorney Johnson, how do we protect people when we have so many people with guns, either legally or illegally? There's a plethora of guns that are out on the market right now, right?
Okay,
So
sure.
is there anything legislatively that can be done
Yes.
or proactively by law
Absolutely.
I'm waiting.
enforcement? Because you have state officials who pass, for example, the red flag law, right?
Which is ridiculous.
And
Yes.
why so? When you are checking for individuals who
Here's the problem with red flag. Let me give you some facts.
let's get some.
Okay.
Let me get some
reaction
facts
to
of
that.
red
Yeah,
law.
tell me about
Red
the red
flag.
flag.
How do
We already have something in place right now. If you need somebody committed, you're shaking your head. If I wanted somebody who has an issue right now, all I have to do is call the police and we can get them in for a psych evaluation and see if they're okay. All your plan with red flag is doing is taking the guns away from the people, and they're still crazy. We're not doing anything to address that. But if you take a city like Chicago, over the last 2 years that have had 1,800, listen to this, 1,800 shootings, over 800 and something killings. Red flag has been around all this time. It's been used 4 times. 4 times, right? So, and those 4 times, we don't know if it would have saved anybody. This is a feel-good thing. You asked me about a solution. The solution is get rid of pistol-free zones. Let the people who want to protect themselves from the
Oh,
criminals.
the Wild Wild West. Okay.
Oh, no.
That's
It's-
what you're
So how do you
suggesting?
stop it? And again, I know you hate to hear
But
this.
Mr. Johnson, Attorney Johnson, let me just ask this question: is it true, or do you have the belief that there should be barriers in place that prevent those who should not have a gun from
Absolutely.
obtaining one?
Well, how do
100%.
how
Absolutely.
do we do that? Because we have nuts on both sides. We have nuts who should not be owning a gun. It's not
Yep.
legal. Then we have nuts who actually go in and have a CPL and can get as many guns as
You
they
know, it's
want.
harder for a person to get a CPL than it is to become a Detroit police officer. Did you know that? Because you didn't know that, because a Detroit police officer doesn't have to go through the exact same background checks that a CPL holder has. Because guess what? If there's been domestic violence in my background as a CPL holder, I can't get a gun. But guess what? As a Detroit police officer, because the police department just had 2 officers killed in Livonia. We don't make a big deal about them using guns, but let somebody else come out here that
that
does
was
it.
a murder suicide, wasn't it?
Were guns involved? Yes.
Oh, yes.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Murder, gun, suicide, all the things you hit.
I think it was a husband and wife, perhaps.
They were police officers.
Yeah, they were
and
police
they
officers.
could legally have guns.
Mhm.
Why don't we go through more background checks for them? Because the problem is the Democrats only want one thing and one thing only. I want to take your guns.
Well, the Republicans, I mean, you want to go there. Go there.
We're there.
Republicans have been in charge for a long time. Why haven't they done more background checks on police officers? I mean, that's where the majority support.
So you agree with me right now? We
that's-
should do
that's-
more background checks
that's
on
where-
Detroit
that-
police officers.
I didn't say
But
Detroit.
isn't there
I'm talking about any of them.
isn't
That's
there a
what you're
middle
saying,
ground?
not
Isn't
just
there
Detroit.
Isn't there a
There
middle
is.
ground that both sides, no matter what the political odds we're talking about, Republican, Democrat, because it really shouldn't be about politics.
And it's
but
not even
sometimes it is.
about
It's about
politics.
safety.
It's
You know,
about safety.
here's the
So
thing.
what is the middle ground?
Here's my thing.
What can we agree on?
Who's responsible for me being safe and secure? I believe it's me. I believe I should be able to walk to the store, enjoy downtown Detroit.
I want people to be able to do that. How do we get to that
But
point?
here's the thing. When you stop my ability from doing that by telling me I can't carry a gun here, but you don't have, but you're equating me to a criminal who's not going to follow those laws.
But just to counter with this particular follow-up question, there are already places where you can carry a gun, like in airports, in
Yes.
certain court buildings, and
Correct.
And
And so
certain,
what? And
so
there's
to that
shootings there?
to that point, are you equating a person who can't carry a gun into an airport or a court facility as a criminal?
I know what I'm equating it to are the people. You go to Metro Airport, how many guns are confiscated every year at Metro Airport by people going through those scanners and trying to get it through security, knowingly or unknowingly, right?
Mhm.
That's a criminal act, right? But here's the bigger thing. Are you going to have that level of security all around Greektown? Your proposal says basically we got to have a way in and a way out for people who are coming in. You don't have that in Greektown. So anybody can walk in. I'm not worried about places that are completely safe. For example, when
Mhm.
the president comes to town,
Mhm.
what I'm worried about is places where you just say, well, you can't bring your gun in here. It's not me I need to worry about. It's the people who aren't going to follow those laws.
So,
Okay, so, I mean, so my thing
Councilwoman Mary
is,
Butters, now let you have the final word
Mhm.
here. Where do we go from here? Where's the timetable on the ordinance that you introduced, and just what
Well,
you're
I
hoping
have
happens
not-
from here?
the
Final word.
ordinance has not been drafted as yet.
Mhm.
It is going to committee. We get to send it to Legislative Policy Division. At the same time, I'm asking the state legislature to look at some authorization legislation that will allow us to implement such zones if we choose to do so.
Killing zones.
I'm not even asking that it's mandatory, that it be mandatory. What I'm saying is that if it gets to be so bad, and if the city government decides that they want to implement such a law locally, then give them permission to do so.
Killing zones.
Well, we are trying to save lives. Now,
And it's not working
Well,
because you have these places where you don't let guns.
I'll let
I
you
keep
the final
going
word.
back. I keep going back to my point though. If you don't want to give up your gun when you come down to the fireworks, don't come to the fireworks.
Why do I got to give up my gun?
Watch it on TV.
Why do I gotta give up my gun?
Attorney
Watch it on
Johnson.
TV. Don't come
Attorney
down.
Johnson, I do have this. What is the solution? Final thoughts on where we move forward from here when it comes to even some Republicans who are siding with Democrats and creating some type of legislation moving forward on gun reform?
As far as gun reform goes, bottom line, it's what's in the heart. We need to, you want to stop a lot of these mass shootings that are happening, not in the middle of Detroit, but in mass places where guns are not allowed, pistol-free zones, schools, Michigan State, Tennessee, Oxford. Guns aren't allowed in those places. They're called killing zones. How do you stop that? Allow people to protect themselves. What Mary Waters wants to do, and you've heard it time and time again, I want to take your guns away. Don't come down here with guns.
Right. I'm saying if you
Right,
have to bring
exactly.
a gun, don't come.
And
Right. So let the Detroit Sun. Will you?
And,
So if something
the
happens, can I sue
police
the
officers
police?
Will be
Can I
checking.
sue you and the police if something happens to me?
What if we get this grant?
Can I sue you and the police if something happens to me?
we're not going to sue anyone right
Call
now.
me at my law office and we will do that.
Do you?
You want the business from all of it. I'm sure.
I want people to be able to protect themselves, and unfortunately,
Okay, how many people who have guns sometimes they don't get to protect themselves? You don't always know.
how many
Now, do
cops
you?
have guns that don't get to protect themselves?
And you know
Yeah,
what?
you know,
This is
so,
a revolving
see
question. And
that?
we won't find or solve that answer.
Pro
here.
gun, anti gun. Remember
I'm
that
not-
when you
no,
go to the
I'm
polls.
not anti-gun.
Only your
No, I'm
policies.
not.
Well-
What I'm saying is that if you come down to special events, there's a difference.
Why?
There's a difference.
So there's
And
not going to be
they're
any
gonna-
crime.
and they're gonna
I'm not
continue
trying to
this
take
even
guns.
after the
I'm not
show.
trying to take guns from anybody.
We'll have
Except
to-
if you come to Detroit.
But
Remember
if
that. You just
and
said that.
people
And
that
actually-
live right here have to follow the same rules.
we will
There are
have
a
But
lot
they
of
don't.
gun owners here in this city.
There
They
are,
just
and
got
they
on the
won't be
show.
But
voting
if they
for you.
come, if they come downtown, they
They
don't
won't
need
be
to
voting
break.
for you.
How, you
And
don't
actually,
know that.
with
But
They
these
know
these
that I
policies-
have their best interests at heart.
Yep, by
I'm
taking
talking
their
about
guns
A
away.
lot of
And we
people
Make
will
come
sure
down
you
here-
record
A
this.
lot of
Attorney
people that come
Johnson,
downtown,
Councilwoman Mary
Want
Walker.
to be
are
safe.
not even gun
And you are
owners.
and you
They're not
want,
even gun owners.
but
A
they
lot
want to
of
be
them.
safe.
A
Do you
lot
want
of
to be
them
safe?
not
You
gun
have
owners.
the executive
The
protection.
police is there.
You have
The
executive
police
protection.
is there to
don't
protect
you?
the people.
Don't you
Yeah,
have
you understand?
executive
No,
protection?
I go a lot of places alone. You see I'm here alone. Do you see executive protection here?
I see MSP.
No,
right
No,
there.
no,
I see two.
I don't think
two
that's part.
MSP
I don't
right
think
there.
that's part of your
I rest my
detail.
case. I rest
You know
my
what? We'll actually have to leave it there. We won't solve all the answers here, but thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Attorney Sarah Johnson and Councilwoman Mary Waters, thank you so much. Thank you for watching this edition of Michigan Chronicle News Now.
Come back next week. We're always right here every Sunday morning at MichiganChronicles.com.